Well, hello there and welcome to Travels with Geordie. If this is your first visit, my name is Peter Knowles and I live on this classic wooden motor cruiser here in Victoria, British Columbia, along with the loving memory of my pup Geordie, all the while fixing it up for some pretty ambitious cruising. If that's the sort of thing you might find interesting, please consider sticking around and subscribing. I'd love to have you. Well. It may be evident that things are changing a bit here at the Causeway Marina. Well, yes, this is my last day here. In fact, most of the winter residents have already left, including MV Zephyrus, which we took over to her new summer berth just across the harbour yesterday. Anyway, all these fancy sailboats coming in are for the Swiftsure offshore race, which happens this weekend or shortly after. Anyway, they do get the entire marina to themselves, thus the last dregs of us winter moorage residents have to be out of here by 11 o'clock, and that's in a brief period. So you know what that means? That means we're going cruising. And we're off. Lady Zephyrus is gonna help me off and come over to the fuel dock with me, so that's kind of a nice send-off. Okay. Well, nothing much else to see. I simply steer around the corner. I'm sure I'll show you all this on a chart. I think this evening's destination is Fulford Harbour on Salt Spring Island, but time will tell. See you soon. Well, we're coming up into Fulford Harbour now, and lovely flying in here. If you've been watching the show for a while, you'll know that I consider Fulford Harbour one of Kelvin Gulf Island's sort of best kept secrets. I think it's a fabulous little spot, and it's on the southern side of Salt Spring Island. In fact, it is the ferry terminus for the ferry from Victoria. Anyway, and speaking of ferries, I see it's not at the terminal, so at any minute now it's going to come screaming up behind me. It's shocking how big these ferries go. Alright then. We're going to anchor right at the head of the bay, or at least that's my plan. There's a couple of options. I'll talk more about it when we get up there. Here comes the ferry just as I'm approaching the harbour. So I'm slowing down, let it do what it's going to do. Now there's actually room on the little community dock here, so I might dock up and have a look at what the fees are for overnight. And we're secure. Oh, and there we go, and there's the ferry off again. This really is a sweet spot. Let's go up and see how much moorage is. Oh dear. Ooh, $1.25. Well, that's significantly more than it was in previous years. Bit too rich for me. We'll go drop the anchor across the cove somewhere. But this really is a fabulous little spot, and we'll be over a few times. I'm going to be here 2 or 3 days as I'm waiting actually to connect with some friends at the other harbor on this island, Ganges at the top. Great restaurant, grocery store, coffee shop, a couple of the little restaurants. Anyway, really great. Okay then, let's see what I can do to find a good spot over on the other side. It's actually opportune because the wind is coming up and there's very little protection here. We'll be better off over there anyway. Good enough for me. So when I set an anchor, I like lots of scope, 4:1 or 5:1 if possible. And when you set the anchor, you can look out and watch the chain swoop up when the anchor actually grabs the ground, and I'm backing on it to make sure that that anchor takes a good bite into the ground. And if the chain goes taut and then pulls the boat back forward a little bit, I know it hasn't let go. If the chain goes taut and then suddenly goes slack, it's because the anchor has dragged and come off the bottom a little bit. Now this is my first time anchoring with this anchor. This is the anchor off Poem. It's a Spade, I believe. Apparently a very high quality anchor. It's set very, very nicely. So we're set, and we're in a little bit of a wind shadow here. I think we're very well set up for the night. Yes. Well, here we are back on the dock in Fulford, and there's a couple of reasons for that. Primarily, it's because I have to run back down to the city to do something overnight tonight and tomorrow morning. So, great place to be able to leave the boat and jump on this ferry in a couple of hours, run down and come back in the morning. That part was easy. The other reason I'm here is a little more complicated. I had a bit of an adventure in the middle of the night last night. Yes, around 2 o'clock, I heard the windlass winding out, as if it was being pulled very, very hard. The snubber had failed, and for some reason, a worm drive windlass could run out. Couldn't figure what's going on, jumped into my clothes, onto the foredeck, and the windlass was not winding out. It was winding in, under power. With 100 feet of chain out, I can't begin to tell you the disaster that could have caused if I hadn't caught it. Never mind the fact that it would have unanchored me. A miserable thing would have happened when the anchor got to the windlass. Anyway, it didn't, and I was able to stop it. This is going to be a really good test for the new windsock. Anyway, somehow the up switch had jammed, which is really strange because I didn't use the up switch to raise the anchor, and it didn't happen for 6 hours. So I really have to make sure that this doesn't happen again. Anyway, reset the anchor, went down and closed the circuit breaker for the windlass, so there's no chance it could happen until I could deal with it. So this afternoon I'm going to go onto the foredeck and see if I can figure out what's going on with those switches. Pretty nasty. Otherwise, this is absolutely glorious, if a tad windy. Okay, my concern is well-founded. If you can see, there's a slight indentation in this retaining plate, and that's because the screws were tightened actually the last time, but anyway, a little bit too tight, and it created an environment where water, and it poured rain last night, could get into here and fill this like a little bowl, because the plate that the switch is sitting in is actually in a bowl of now full of water, and I suspect that water filled this up, went down inside the switch and shorted out the switch. I'm going to see if that can happen. I wouldn't have thought that water is a good enough conductor at 12 volts to trigger this, but let's find out. I think I will remove the chain before I play with this anymore. Okay, I would find it very hard to believe that water would actually short the switch out, but no, it doesn't actually. Of course it doesn't. I knew it wouldn't. Nonetheless, something did happen. So what I'm going to do, drill a small drainage hole in the bottom of this little cup. And that should solve this problem forever. I might be able to make that hole slightly larger. There we go. That won't clog. And to collect all this swarf out of here. There we go. Now, the trick is to reinstall this in a way that it will not leak. And that's difficult. Because this is not really an ideal setup. Now, I have solved the problem that if it does leak, it will drain away down into the chain locker, no problem. But I really need to try and find something to do about this. Now, I sort of loathe to put butyl tape on here because that's a bit thick, but I may actually put a thin little layer of butyl tape on here if I can somehow manage to do that. I roll this out like plasticine. Okay, let's see if that does the trick. I'm also going to take this retaining ring and put it on upside down. It won't be as pretty because it's got some gunge on it, but who cares? And it'll offset the pressure problems that it was having. Okay, well, with any luck, that won't give me any more trouble. Let's do the same to this one. This one's actually dry, which makes me really wonder if that actually was the problem, wet somehow. And again, upside down. There we go. Now, because this is butyl tape, this will creep a little bit, so I'll come out in a couple of days and tighten it down a bit, and then a couple of days later, and tighten it down a bit again. Now, I won't consider this a very elegant solution, but it should be completely safe. So if you have switches similar to this, where the switch itself is in a stainless steel bowl, that if it did get water in it, might cause some trouble, although I'm not actually sure that was the problem, maybe drill a little drain hole. Another little project I'm going to do while I'm up here is to replace these wood screws with some carriage bolts. And that's because I want to increase the stability of this even a little bit, because especially at the back end, the deck is in really good shape under this, and anything is stronger than a couple of wood screws. Even big screws as they are. And of course, my little friend Butyl. Cover these old holes up. Okay. Till I can deal with all of this area sometime later this summer. Okay. Well, as I mentioned, I have to run over to the city again tonight to help Lady Zephyrus move her boat. And that's actually kind of fun because it's so easy to just hop on the ferry here over to Victoria and then come back in the morning. Pretty neat spot that way, although it does feel a little odd to leave Geordie here at the dock all by herself overnight. She'll be fine. Okay, ferry ride. That means prop wash. Well, hello there and welcome to the Travels with Geordie Beer of the Week. I am so happy to have Lady Zephyrus here visiting. She came back up with me on the ferry after I went down yesterday to move her boat and get her all set up for the summer. Thanks for coming to visit.
Thanks for having me.
here on Salt Spring, it was a pretty quick trip for you. It was a little longer for me.
Yes.
Yeah.
35-minute ferry from top of the island.
Exactly. Okay, let's get right to a beer because, of course, we're on Salt Spring. We're going to drink a Salt Spring Brewery windswept West Coast IPA. And I've never had this.
I think that is very apropos, actually.
Windswept with all this wind lately?
It's been so windy.
Oh, my gosh.
This is the first calm day we've had in a long time. And I'm starting to wonder if this is sort of some kind of a trend that we're having where we're just going to have windy days a lot.
Don't say that. Just don't say that.
No, it can't be. Can't be. But definitely feeling windswept, and so that I think that makes sense that we're
life in general, exactly. I certainly got. It was a bit windy up here the other night. I'll tell you, it was quite windy, and of course, all those sailors from Swift Shore. I think we showed you all the race boats that were occupying our marina for a day or two or whatever.
A few days there, waiting in the wind.
Yeah, it was windy while they were there, and then they left this morning in pretty much calm. So. They may not be having such a great time out at Swift Shore. Okay, windswept. So many windswept. Wild West Coast IPA from Salt Spring.
Salt Spring.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Ooh, hoppy.
Ooh, that's some hoppy.
That's probably hoppier than you want. Of course, I love it.
That's definitely a West Coast IPA.
This is almost a fat tug. It's also called a strong. I think this is a fat tug contender, eh?
Yeah, it's
very likely.
Not as floral. But
anyway, it's a very hoppy, very West Coast IPA sort of thing. It's yummy.
Yeah, it's kind of like Fat Tug Plus.
Plus, exactly, even more. If they're going to outdo it. So because this episode is only one day after the regular episode, this being a bonus episode, I didn't have any time. There wasn't time for any comments from last week. So I'm going to pick a second winner from the previous episode from last week. Anyway, Brian M. DIY. You're a winner. You won a Travels with Geordie t-shirt. Get a hold of me and I'll make sure you get it. Yes. So cheers to you,
cheers
Brian
to
Brian M. However, in this 24-hour period, I was very pleased to get a new Patreon. Mikel, would you pronounce that, Mikel?
Say it's Michael.
Mikel Lundberg. Yeah, but with the K? If I've mispronounced your name, Michael or Mikel, I apologize. Mikel or Michael Lundberg, thank you ever so much for coming aboard. Cheers. Well, this is the beginning of summer, is it not? I mean, it's not really summer yet, but it's the beginning of our summer season as a cold wind comes across us.
Yeah.
So you've moved to your summer digs in the Inner Harbour. Mm-hmm. I'm going cruising, but we'll see each other again soon, right? Uh-huh. For some more cruising.
Because my boat's going to go up in about a month.
Exactly. And are we going to give a sneak preview of what we're doing, or are we holding that close to our chest? No, I guess we're not going to talk about it.
Let's just say it might involve some food.
Yeah, we like to eat. Anyway, so that's
food and drink.
Food and drink. So anyway, we might let people in a little more on that a little later. But anyway, it's going to be fun. I'm going to get some work done on the boat in Maple Bay in the next couple of weeks. And before that, I have some guests coming from Montreal, some old friends. So I'm looking forward to that. So anyway, so glad to have you aboard. Now, all we need is a word of the week.
Word of the week? Well, I mean, I think we have it already, don't we?
What have you got?
Windswept.
Oh, right.
Don't you think?
Windswept. Yeah, exactly. That's perfect. Windswept.
What can you do with that?
You know, we're both going to get flack for our hair.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, if you'd like to win a Travels with Geordie t-shirt, simply use the word windswept in a comment down below, and I'll pick at random over the next week or so worth of comments. And if I pick you, you'll have won a Travels with Geordie t-shirt. Cheers, windswept.
Cheers.
Windswept. Windswept. Well, our little marina has certainly changed in 24 hours.